Alternative Digitalk. Real issues, real talk.
Fellow citizens, following the sequence of events, Uganda seems to be at political crossroads.
I'm not a servant of anybody.
Madam, I know the law.
As such, Alternative Digital brings you the Interface Show with retired Colonel Dr. Kiza Besuje.
Let's keep on the same page on Alternative Digitalk,
As he gives you the alternatives on the transition question, rule of law, human rights and freedom, youth inclusion in governance, economic stagnation, as he confirms.
I'll be always here Saturday from 10 a.m. in the morning. Be there.
Don't miss the live discussion on the Alternative Uganda, Digitalk TV Facebook pages, and the Alternative Uganda YouTube channel.
The Alternative Digitalk. Real issues, real talk.
Again, my name is Norman Kanyeihamba. We are streaming live on our social media pages, that's the Alternative Uganda and also Digitalk TV. As it has been for the past good months, even today we are with Justice Kanyeihamba to take us through the Constitution of the Republic of Uganda and also discussing some of the sequences of events as they happen in the country. I want to ask him to say hello to our viewers and then we shall begin straight away.
Hello viewers, very delighted to be with you again. And I am as alert and as sharp as I have always been.
Okay, that's Justice Kanyeihamba. We are with him here. I want him to, I'm sure you have for some time worked with the late now Justice Opio Aweri, whom I'm sure he procured your book, by the way, and he wasn't able to appear onto the book launch, your book launch last year. Unfortunately, he passed on. Any message in regards to his work with you some time ago as the legal brain, Justice Aweri?
In our culture, we have a saying that don't say bad things about the dead when they are not there to defend themselves. All I can say by all accounts is that Justice Opio was a competent judge. He did his duties diligently, as far as I know, and he'll be missed by many people for passing on too early. That's all I can say.
Okay. Our viewers, today we will, for some reason, go back and revisit Article 102. There is your viewer in UK who said that you need to substantiate on this very Article 102 about the qualifications of the president. In particular, this person was interested in Article 102, A citizen of Uganda by birth. That confuses people because literally in your explanation in the previous show, you said so as long as one whose parents are Ugandans, even when that person is not born in Uganda, that person qualifies to be president.
So long as the parents, neither of them were diplomats. And he is born to Uganda citizens. As far as I know, the parents of President Museveni were Ugandans before they passed on. And so, by the provisions of our constitution, I want to emphasize and repeat again that President Museveni is a Ugandan.
Their concern is about the son.
By birth.
They are concerned, okay, this view was
But
concerned
similarly,
that Muhoozi was born in Tanzania, and Article 102 clause A here says that person must be a citizen of Uganda by birth. To mean, the translation to him is that this person must have been born here.
You see, what you have to prove
Is that
his father, Museveni, was not a Uganda citizen at the time of birth. But as long as Museveni was a citizen of Uganda, Muhoozi is a citizen by birth.
even when he was born in Tanzania?
Precisely, what I have said, there is one exception. If Museveni had been a diplomat and not a freedom fighter, Ugandan, then Muhoozi would have had to apply to become a Ugandan citizen. But he doesn't have to do so, because when he was born, Museveni was a freedom fighter, and he was a Uganda citizen, not a diplomat. And therefore that automatically makes Muhoozi Kainerugaba a citizen of Uganda. No question about it.
There's no question about whether or not Muhoozi qualifies to contest.
He's qualified, definitely.
If he does.
Because he's a Uganda citizen. So therefore he's qualified. You better find another reason for me, which I have. But not bad.
Okay.
You are in a wrong trail when you wanted to disqualify him because he's not a Ugandan citizen. He's a pure Ugandan citizen by birth, according to our constitution and the laws.
Okay. Our other interest is about Article 98, and this is, in fact, in particular, 2. The president shall take precedence over all persons. The interpretation here that one has, does that mean that the president is the most important person in this country?
No, it doesn't.
What is the interpretation here in particular? Because here you clearly said he shall take precedence.
Even in Bashiga custom, Banyachitara, Ibaganda, the elder takes precedence. When you go to Ebujeni, and there is one with your father, and there is one chair left, you don't take it. Your father takes it. So this has nothing to do with the powers or with anything. It simply say who comes first to sit down at a wedding or in a meeting. It is the president. It simply means that.
Isn't this article being abused for someone in presidency to think he's the most important person in
pardon?
Isn't such an article misleading whoever is in presidency to believe that they're the most important people?
Do you know you and your father? You have a father,
yes.
Or you had a father?
I have.
So when somebody says your father takes precedence at a wedding, sits down first, and the elders are fed first, is there any confusion?
No, because this, one of the reasons for which this person was bothered about this,
yes.
I think it goes back to the powers of the president, that almost every powers were given to him. And because...
But you have not explained my view, that one. There is not a single power which was ever given to him. He and the movement took them. So no power was ever given to him, including the right of mercy, to give mercy. He has to be advised by the Attorney General. Every power, I want to repeat, the president exercises. He exercises on recommendation of others,
not himself.
Not himself. And then normally I am really a bit surprised that this has never sunk into your head.
Not in my head, in the citizens' heads, because they see him.
So let them do that.
He will be at Kololo and say, as long as I understand, I will not increase the salary.
So what I told you,
he will say everything. So
our constitution says to be LC committee member, you must have a house.
Yeah, in
that area. Yeah. Supposing your opponent bans that house, then you are disqualified.
Does not qualify you.
Because you no longer have a house. So if the CA, of which I was a member, and we were many, not Kanyeihamba alone, say, Mr. President, you cannot exercise any power whatsoever
alone,
unless you are advised by a committee of 7, in the case of some powers he exercises, like appointing a judge. You cannot appoint a judge unless you have been advised.
By the Judicial Service Commission?
Yes, but if you wanted to intimidate those people, instead of appointing a judge of the highest caliber in the land, like a judge of the Supreme Court, you appoint a judge. Like today, the chairman of the Judicial Service Commission is a mere judge of the High Court. Then he's intimidated because those he's looking after, like the judge of the Court of Appeal, the Judicial Service Commission, they are his superiors. And if he returns back, which he must, after the necessary years, those are his bosses. Can you discipline your boss? No.
Literally, no.
Ugandans make mistake. One of them recently told me that Kanyeihamba's advice was worse, is worse than Ebola, Corona, and AIDS combined. But he's abusing Museveni, not me. Because for me, what I did was to say, Museveni, you cannot exercise any power whatsoever. Not even the prerogative of mercy, except that you are advised by a committee of other Ugandans.
Other advisors.
That is Kanyeihamba, what I put in the constitution with my colleagues.
Again, under Article 98, Clause 4, while holding office, the president shall not be liable to proceedings in any court. And as far as I know, you have sued him. What are the exceptions to this clause?
Museveni, as head of state, sovereign head of state, cannot be sued. But Museveni, as chairman of the NRM, as head of government, as an individual citizen, he is suable. So you have put it in the context. A baby cannot run 100 miles. That is true. But when he becomes older, he does. So we are relating to him only in one capacity as head of state and the sovereign of Uganda. There is not suable. But in all, if he doesn't want to be sued, he shouldn't hold any other office. He shouldn't be chairman of the NRM. He shouldn't be head of government. He should be like the Queen. Remember the Queen of England couldn't be sued, but she never had any other powers apart from being head and appointing ministers on the recommendation of cabinet and anybody else.
So does this mean Okay, if, for example, one had any concerns about the mismanagement of the country, there is no way you can sue the president to that regard.
No, no, no. If the country is managed, the government of Uganda is headed by the president. You sue him as leader of government.
Through the by suing the Attorney
If a
General,
party makes a decision which is wrong, like the NRM party, it often makes mistake. You sue its head, President Museveni. He is now the chairman, not president.
chairman of NRM.
You see, what is wrong with the Ugandans? They never distinguish the post from the person who is occupying it. Supposing Museveni killed Kahindo Tafiri in the light, and we see him still. Are you saying he's immune?
Because
He would be charged with the murder.
but here, in a clause 5 here, you say, civil or criminal proceedings may be instituted against a person after ceasing to be president in respect of anything done or
So
committed.
tell me, when I defeated him, when he had nominated Odochi, I went to court. The court said I was right, and Odochi was never appointed again as Chief Justice. When I defended the rebel NRM MPs, they were suing Museveni for not allowing them to be in the parliament. Then my argument was a member of parliament represents the constituency, geographical area, or a certain group like women's representatives or whatever. He does not represent a party. I was laughed out by the then Prime Minister, Amama Mbabazi, and all the supporters say, Kanyeihamba, you are joking. You cannot sue the president. Didn't I? Tell that man. Didn't Kanyeihamba win? Suing the president, head of the party?
But are Ugandans informed that there is a very small distinction between the person of the president and then Mr. Museveni as an individual? Because to so many, some have been disappointed by either his orders or something. But
you see, for me, when I give you examples of where I defeated the President Museveni as a president, why don't you comment on those defeats?
And act as a
And either that you are wrong or that you are right, the president can be sued in his other capacities except as head of state.
I think that
You can sue him.
that becomes hard for some. Okay, it becomes.
But why is it hard?
For some.
Let me
maybe to senior
let
leaders
one
like
of those called you. He calls me and I
and
explain.
explain to them.
Let them call me. I am here with you.
Okay, our viewers with Justice Kanyeihamba, we're trying to dig deeper, especially into chapter 7.
No, we don't differ.
Dig
You
deeper. I'm saying
you
digging
can never
deeper.
differ on facts.
Justice
And
Kanyeihamba,
the
I am
truth.
saying we are digging deeper.
Oh, deeper.
In
I thought you said
chapter
we
7
differ.
of
I'm
the
sorry.
Constitution.
I thought you
And,
said we differ.
Article 99 also says, clause 3, is that it shall be the duty of the president to abide by, uphold, and safeguard this constitution
Thank you.
and the laws of Uganda,
Yes.
and to promote the welfare of the citizens and protect territorial integrity of Uganda. Where he has not upheld, because you have often argued that he definitely bribed MPs to amend this constitution. In my view, and in line with this clause, he did not safeguard.
That's why.
What do citizens do in an event that their president does not safeguard?
This is my president. He said, I think last year, the police are the most corrupt institution in the country. These are his words. How many has he sacked? Currently, my land has been grabbed because they thought I was dying. I am still here. Thank the Lord. Then one of his senior police officers said, Kanyeihamba is threatening to demolish the building of a land grabber. I like that Langa. I think he may have paid him some money. Go and protect Mbazira's land, the grabber. I sometimes feel that our president really hears or reads these things. Bazira, the former mayor of Entebbe municipality, is the one who hates Museveni and me for not in the Constituent Assembly having restored the colonialism. He said we were better off under colonialism than we are under Museveni. Museveni is keeping quiet. His own son, whom he recently recruited the general, has said that the movement is now evil. He doesn't think it has got any usefulness for Uganda. His father claims I am the chairman of the NRM, and I love it. So if your son hates one thing, but you love it, isn't there a problem between the father and the son, you people? But you keep quiet. You all wait to ask Kanyeihamba. I once asked a journalist, on a very way, I said, what is your opinion? He said, I don't have any opinion. I am only a reporter. Yes.
And so in the event, okay, if I may ask as a senior citizen, do you agree or disagree that the President of the Republic of Uganda has not safeguarded this constitution?
Has not what?
Safeguarded this constitution as you made it.
No, he has failed. Note, you don't use a note. You said he has failed to honor the constitution. He said some years ago is the best Uganda has ever done, has ever made. Those are his words. He has failed. Not has not, but has failed.
Completely has failed to safeguard the constitution.
Has failed deliberately or otherwise.
We continue to dig deeper into this constitution, and definitely all those comments that come on board, we pass them to the senior citizen, but most importantly, a former Minister of Justice and also Attorney General.
Do you know what Bamwine, the former president judge, called me in his preface? He is easily the best lawyer that ever lived. Not of Uganda, but the whole world. Okay. Let the listeners
know that you...
Yeah.
Okay. Another viewer sent in a comment and asked, did you participate in the formulation of the General Court Martial?
Me?
Yes,
no.
As Attorney General.
I have never asked any question about the
General Court Martial
measure other than what we provided in the Constitution. Let me remind everybody. The Constitution says the military, including court martial, are subordinate to civilian people in the government. That is the provision. So we subordinated the military and the court martial to ordinary courts and to the ordinary people of Uganda. Again, they have broken that.
Now the question that he raised also resurfaces. You have someone, a civilian, tried in the General Court Martial, let's say over illegal possession of ammunitions. But you also have another civilian tried in a civilian court over illegal possession of ammunitions. What is the difference between a trial of such a case in a General Court Martial over a civilian and also in a civilian court?
You see, the Supreme Court of Uganda, and I believe also the Court of Appeal, have made it straight clear that the court martial is not
For non-soldiers.
It is subordinate even to magistrate's court. But the NRM and its leadership have totally ignored that. We have had the two cases. Me and the petitioners, and the other one, appellants. The first one, on the petition, when President Museveni realized we were petitioning, he withdrew from that case and said, I'm no longer interested in making rules about the right to bail. I leave it to the discretion of the court. So for us petitioners, we accepted his undertaking. We only said, should this matter come again, our petition should stand in its way so that we automatically, or our successors automatically, argue the case. But the Attorney General, whom I told you is an expert on oil, the degree he got from Scotland, from the University of Dundee, is evidence that he was appointed mainly for his qualification in the administration of oil than in defending Ugandan rules. When I say it, all lawyers keep quiet. So having said that, the court ordered them, the Court of Appeal, of Constitutional Court, that they must respond to our submissions within 5 days. They didn't. They ignored the court. In other countries, they call that contempt of court. Then the court wisely said, we can no longer hear you, so we shall give judgment on notice. They no longer want to hear Museveni or the NRM or the Attorney General because they incompetently, perhaps knowingly, disobeyed the court order.
If I may ask.
The recent case of Nzei and the Mbabazi was 320 and the Kanyeihamba was similarly treated. The Court of Appeal ordered them to put in a defense. They just contemptuously refused. And the court also has said, we shall give the notices to the appellants, that is the Kanyeihambas of this world, the Surumas and the Jim Muhoozi General, on notice. That is how this country is being governed.
If I may ask, were you ever consulted in regards to the establishment of the General Court Martial?
No, I have already said no. But for us, we made the Constitution deal with the Court Martial. And we said the Court Martial and the army are subordinate to civilian rule. In other words, even LC chairman, LC1 chairman, can order the army to stop what they are doing because the army is subordinate
to the civilian rule,
to the chairman of LC1.
So isn't this an abuse where you have a General Court Martial trying civilians and...
It is an abuse of power. It is an abuse. You have absolutely right.
Another
But
question.
Since the last 20 years, this country has been governed by impunity and illegalities. Ever since they removed term limits and age limits. You know my story. I have written a book about it. Unfortunately, few Ugandans read at all. They are content to hear rumors. Rumors are accepted as facts.
And facts
When
are
people
regarded
think,
as
I have written 35 books, arguably nobody else has in the world, But the newspapers like New Vision, which I co-own, and the Monitor, where I was recruited as regularly to write every Sunday, the Land View, they have neglected to publish, well, they have refused to publish all my articles, even though that is in contrary to Aga Khan's instruction. That is Uganda. That's why I've written another book called In the Power of Africa, The Unexpected Happens. But the unexpected has happened so many, many times. Now in Uganda, what happens is the expected. When you break the law, when the qualification for office is corruption, and when the military disobeys the civilian government, even though the constitution said they should be under and not above the civilian authority.
What's your take on a non-lawyer being chairperson for such a court? For example, the General Court Martial, it's known, save for General Ivan Koreta, I think, he's the only person who has led that court when he has a legal mind and background. The likes of Guti, the likes of Leti, Tumwine, we're non-lawyers.
It's ridiculous. Because court martial deals with the law purely.
Because it's
So
a court.
to know that a court is presided over by a military commander, or whether he's general or not. So for example, Museveni is the president of this country, and I respect and accept him as such. But he knows nothing about the law. He's totally ignorant of anything to do with the law. But a Ugandan is, shall I say, conception. When Museveni says, I sack the Chief Justice, they agree. Because they are looking at the office. I say, oh, the president is the most powerful man in the country, therefore, whatever he orders. There's a story in one of our kingdoms. You know, we had kingdoms in Uganda. That whenever the king arrived, and then he saw a very beautiful married woman there, and the desired to sleep with her, he would tell the husband, tonight I will sleep in your house, in your bed with your wife. And the man said, I thank you, I thank you. It's a great honor. Then he would go and buy meat and omenge to please the king while he's ravishing his wife. I heard recently that the Minister of Justice, Attorney General, and the Chief Justice want to revive customary law. That was one of them. A Kabaka, I think it was Mwanga, whenever the European came, they told him the gun can kill. He couldn't believe it. So he said, you kill my servant there. Bang, bang. Yay! The man is dead. You are right, it works. Oh, Katoto work. You want to bring that kind of justice again in Uganda? We put in the constitution that any law which despises women or is heinous like that one they want to bring back is null and void and is overtaken by the constitution. It seems to me that many of our leaders, including the Minister of Justice and the Constitutional Affairs, the Chief Justice of Uganda, don't know that. I have written, remember there is a fight between Dr. Justice Chisache
and the boss and
the Chief Justice. Now somebody, corrupt lawyers, have suggested they should settle out of court so that you cover all that. Nobody will ever know. I have written a letter to the Chief Justice. He has refused to see me. I wanted to give him advice. I called him, and you can ask him. His private secretary said, he's not here, but I will tell him. A month passed. Then I called his personal secretary. She answered. She said, we shall tell you. So now another month. Then after that, I called the secretary again. She said, I have consulted his private secretary. We both told him. He has never answered. Normally, Digital Alternative, we had invited him to be one of the big guests at the launch of my book, Evolution of Constitutional Law, Public Law and the Government. I talked to him personally and he said, yes, I will come. He never turned up. If you remember, a friend, Sheikh Rubega, took us in a prayer. And he himself said, knowing the Chief Justice was there. He has never explained why he didn't come. Then, in an appeal judgment where he presided, he said publicly, what's wrong with Ugandans? The ink with which you wrote this constitution is not yet dry, and yet you want to change it. And he's the one who accepted that the constitution should be amended, so there is no age limit. So what I have said, and I hope the listeners are, you can't hear or settle a case on the wrangles the Chief Justice has had with Justice Sisaki. The only way out, and it's the only way, is to ask them to retire in the public interest. Most of them are not. They are sufficiently qualified people to replace both.
To save the image of the judiciary and...
Yes. If you settle out of court, or you let the case go on, the judiciary reputation will be damaged forever, no matter what you do. I appeal to the Chief Justice, Alfonso Doro Owinyi, and my land friend, Justice Chisaki, to retire now in the public interest, so that the Judicial Service Commission considers and recommends suitable replacements. That is my advice, and I stand by it.
We have 2 minutes to go into a short break, but I want to ask you this question before we go to this break. In regards to your, I don't know whether he still stands as your friend or relative, that's Kanyeihamba, and I want you to connect it to the local laws, where the UK government has issued sanctions against him. So more or less he's barred to cross to UK and the rest. So where such foreign governments issue sanctions, in line with our local laws, what else can the local laws do to ensure that such sanctions are realized?
Nothing. The UK law, or if you are Rwandese law, is determined by UK or by Rwandese. So if by the UK law, they have said Kayura, by the way, he calls me uncle, for reasons I'm not going to go into, which is true. They have said, Kayura, we no longer want you to visit UK. That's it. So he should be appealing to the UK authorities and the courts for this ban to be removed, and not Uganda courts.
Wouldn't that compel the Ugandan leadership to investigate such a person on such allegations?
It should. It should. You see, President Museveni is an enigma to Ugandans. He's the one who suspended the Kanyeihamba. And I believe Museveni seemed to have been angry because of the activities, apparently, Kanyeihamba was carrying on in Rwanda. You know, both originated from that area. Although Museveni doesn't accept it. But you can't hide the truth. People know. No matter how you protest angry, and then you open your eyes widest, people will always believe that the truth prevails. So having said that, then when he was being prosecuted by the commercial court, rather by the General Court Martial, Museveni said, I wrote there, by the way, as his adopted uncle. Because for me, I didn't have, apart from neglecting his duties as a police officer and becoming purely political, I don't know any other wrong Kanyeihamba committed. So I am the one of those who wrote to the president saying, you people prove him that he is wrong, because I don't know any wrong he committed. But if he did, you prosecute him. And we see the evidence. They have never done so. But Museveni said, I will forgive him one day. But he has never forgiven him. Why?
And neither are the trials also.
One of the promises the president breaks daily. So for me, your question is clear to me.
That if there was
the person to forgive him, like some of the judges were said they were compromised to commit, whether to order people to be adopted in America, they should be cleared by the Americans.
Okay.
Because they are the ones who are choosing them.
Our viewers, we are breaking for a minute and coming back shortly to have more insights about what has been happening, but also the powers of parliament as we move along, and just definitely the judiciary before we close today.
The Alternative Digitalk. Real issues, real talk.
Fellow citizens, following the sequence of events, Uganda seems to be at political crossroads.
I'm not a servant of anybody.
Madam, I know the law.
As such, Alternative Digital brings you the Interface Show with retired Colonel Dr. Kiza Besuje.
Let's keep on the same page on Alternative Digitalk,
As he gives you the alternatives on the transition question, rule of law, human rights and freedom, youth inclusion in governance, economic stagnation, as he confirms.
I'll be always here Saturday from 10 a.m. in the morning. Be there.
Don't miss the live discussion on the Alternative Uganda, Digitalk TV Facebook pages, and the Alternative Uganda YouTube channel.
The Alternative Digitalk. Real issues, real talk.
for the patience. We are back. And today, when we find something so catchy is what I throw direct to the senior citizen and the senior counsel and the Justice of Supreme Court to explain it to the best of our understanding. There is this Article 104, which you have so much interest in, and that's what also caused you trouble, for lack of another word, between you and Mpuga, having written to him, asking him to challenge it. And Article 104, in black and white, challenging the presidential election. I may not, okay, I'm going to run so quickly to clause 3. That the Supreme Court shall inquire into and determine the petition expeditiously and shall declare its findings not later than 30 days, which has been amended to now 45, I think.
45.
Yeah. Where no petition is filed within the time prescribed under clause 2 of this article, or where a petition having been filed is dismissed by the Supreme Court, the candidate declared elected shall conclusively be taken to have been duly elected as president. Each question here has always been, and I bring it back to you, what has made justices not to interpret the simple English of inquire into and giving findings? What has made not to use the simple
we
English?
all learned English, not in courts of law or law schools, but in ordinary schools, primary schools, secondary schools, universities. Some people have got doctorates from universities. And we know what words mean. To inquire into is not the same as saying to hear into. That would not be to say, I heard into. So you must inquire. In my own findings, in the case of Chiza Besigye versus Museveni and the Electoral Commission, I went at length, I think there are 2 pages, to distinguish between hearing a case and inquiring into a petition. So inquiring is radically different from hearing a case. Those who don't know the difference, please, I refer you to my findings in the 2006 petition, where the late Justice Arthur Odell, the late Justice Sekoko, and I, Kanyeihamba, gave our findings individually. Also, our Chief Justice then, Odochi, gave his own findings, not a judgment. In fact, the late Mulenga, who was on the panel, and the late Karokola, also on the panel, gave judgment. I want your listener to listen that Kanyeihamba has no book. These are in my head. There are very few judges who can recite the actual provisions of the law and the findings of judges like I do. If you have one, bring him. And we debate at the, for me I'm 83, bring him at any age, and they'll defeat him in any debate. I am not bragging, that's how God made me. So I have stated elsewhere in writing challenging presidential election. It's a small booklet I have written. And I say all the decisions you have made on presidential election challenges and the orders are all wrong and illegal and unconstitutional. No man, I want you to remember that all the decisions we have made confirming President Museveni to have won are wrong and unconstitutional.
Because they have ruling.
They
have hearing and judgment.
They have hearing and the judgment.
Rather than inquire
the Constitution says inquire
into
and they give findings.
And declare its findings.
There is no way a judgment can be equal to a finding. Never in the history of the language. There is no way.
So this one is more or less investigative. You follow the entire process of...
absolutely. Lumumba was here. He was my guest and yours. And you came to visit me here. And he said, Kanyeihamba is right. This is one of the greatest minds of legal minds we have in East Africa. He said, you cannot hear a petition or give judgment. You inquire into and they give findings. So I agree with Kanyeihamba that all the decisions they have had since you put the Constitution into place are wrong and unconstitutional. And why do I say that? Because to inquire is to investigate.
Thoroughly.
And the inquiry is not about the lawyers or the parties. It is addressed to the court. So they have all avoided that.
So it's a process, in your view, that should begin from the nomination day, because you watch TV, you follow these all events.
Yes,
and by the time the petition comes on board, you
and the judges are Ugandans. They are not from Eskimo land, or not even from New Zealand. They are Ugandans. And the day of nomination, all of you are aware of what's happening. So why do you want more than 30 days? I gave my findings and my reasons within the 30 days allowed. One of our panelists gave a judgment as long as 300 pages.
You're given the time to
it took over a year. People gave, say, Museveni won, but we shall give our reasons later. But the philosophy of law is nobody should accept your ruling unless you give reasons. Reasons are part and parcel of the inquiry. They are part and parcel of the judgment. You cannot say, I declare my judgment, no money won, but I will give reasons next year. Because everybody is waiting.
Which reason is it that?
For the presidents. The losers, the political parties are all anxious to know it as soon as possible. So there is no reason why you shouldn't give your findings in 30 days. And when I asked my colleagues, and at that time I asked him, I said, if you go beyond the 30 days, isn't that unconstitutional? They have never answered that question. And I think in Uganda, like in most of Africa, when you ask a question and the person fears to answer it, you know he's wrong. You know they are wrong. So let me tell you, the judgment we had, President Museveni winning in 2001, was wrongly decided, Kanyeihamba said. First of all, apart from saying it was a judgment by the majority, I wasn't on that court. The Odochi I wanted to be there. Karokora didn't want to be there. But the Chief Justice insisted Karokora should be there, Kanyeihamba should be not be there. That was the decision. But it was illegal and unenforceable because there was no quorum. We had already made the constitution of
1995.
Yes, 1995. And we were saying the quorum to hear a petition is 7 judges of the Supreme Court. It was heard by only 5. It doesn't take a lawyer or a judge.
Yeah.
It takes a law student to say, but this is not correct. There should be 7, but there are only 5. But second, they called the judgment. But Article 104, which you have referred to, says it should be findings, not a judgment. So it was wrong. The 2006, a majority of us gave us our findings, but others were intimidated. They gave a judgment. The 2011,
11, they didn't petition.
Similarly, they never issued it, but it was wrong. They said our judgment is reserved, and it allowed the president to win. Then the 2021 16.
16.
Chiza Besigye won, but he didn't petition. I advised him to petition.
I think because he had lost trust in the judiciary and definitely the Supreme Court justices, most likely. Where all the precedents show that
if you were to judge me that what I talk about are judgment, they have all been refused by the NRM. They consider me to be wrong. But I continue writing. I'm writing for history. If you check in the world of publication, 8 of my books are listed on Amazon of America. They are referred to in American universities and the UK universities. Even if I die today, those books will last forever. In the future, maybe they will be expanded. They may be restricted. Nevertheless, they will be there. What the leadership of Uganda and others, the mistake they make is to ignore what you are saying. There is a police officer at Kabalagala. You see, when you look through my window, I am blocked from seeing the sea. About a month ago, they said they will cut it. The trees, they are still there. And one of those who came and they said, yes, they are dangerous there. That tree could fall and kill the motorists, must be removed eventually. He came here. He said, we shall come tomorrow and cut these trees. They have not cut them. They are still there. So I went there one time, and he told me, I am very sorry, Judge. For him, he calls me Judge. For you, you call me retired. I don't know the difference. I would prefer to call me Professor Kanyeihamba or Dr. Kanyeihamba or Mr. Kanyeihamba than retired. Because when you say somebody is retired, you are inviting the people to say the man is too old, he's retired, he has nothing useful to say. So
I want to take it back to
so what I was saying, all the petitions we have had since the making of the 1995 Constitution, deciding a petition about presidency, are all wrongly decided by the Supreme Court. And I stake my money and my reputation on that statement.
And I want to ask you, on behalf of our viewers, do you think there is need for a constitutional petition, for example, maybe for a constitutional interpretation of these 2 words to ensure that the next petitions are in line with these 2 words, which seem to confuse your land feelers?
Ugandans will have a problem. What am I doing?
No, this one
I am giving interpretation I used to be a judge and a good one after that of the Court of Appeal. Do you need another interpretation?
Maybe to them with the precedent.
From corrupt judges? We don't need, let me tell you what happened one day. I was giving judgment, and the late Justice Sekoko said, Professor Kanyeihamba, which authority do you have to make that statement? You know what I answered? I am the authority. I don't need somebody to interpret my words again. Unless you don't believe me. And if you don't believe me, challenge me. And they give reasons why there should be another interpretation of what I made this constitution with others. Who is better qualified than interpreting this constitution?
You know, the purpose for that is to have a precedent on record, so that it compels your, like you called them, most of whom are corrupt, to have this, I mean, interpreted, because this is common English, inquiring into and literally giving out findings. And I think going further on clause 5, that after due inquiry, under clause 3 of the article, the Supreme Court may dismiss the petition, declare which candidate was validly elected, or annul the election. Clause 6, where an election is annulled, a fresh election shall be held within 20 days from the date of annulment. I hope, in your view, is that practical? Like 20 days are enough for the government to have such an election?
It may not be enough. And if they amended it or proposed to amend it within reasonable terms, I would have no objection.
So during that period, who presides over as president?
Oh, the Constitution provides. First of all, yes. We have the vice president. He would be presiding as president. And in the absence of that,
the speaker shall perform the functions of the office of the president until the new president is elected.
That's right. That's
We have to, let's jump to Article 107. No, sorry. Yeah, Article 107, the removal of the president. The president may be removed from office in accordance with this article on any of the following grounds: abuse of office or willful violation of the oath of allegiance, and the president's yes.
Before you go any further, for those two alone, Museveni should have been removed from office. Museveni should by now have been removed from office.
That's what I wanted to ask you in particular. That has he respected the oath of allegiance?
He hasn't.
Neither has he rather fulfilled, hasn't he abused any?
He has. Therefore, he's ripe and ready to be removed from office. He was some time ago, but the Ugandans were cowards. Instead of looking at Museveni as an individual who has done, we look at his office. The office is more important than Museveni.
Even B here talks about misconduct or misbehavior.
Yes.
Are there specific precedents that you have where you think the president...
Let me ask you. Recently, we had the case of the coffee deal
with the Bennett,
by a woman who lives in Kororo, but claims she's from Rome. Everybody knows. Then, for the first time, Museveni disagreed with the Attorney General and said, I respect the findings of a parliamentary committee, which is reasonable because the parliament committee represents nearly 500 Ugandans in the parliament who are lawmakers. So parliament sent up a committee into this saga of the coffee deal. The committee said the deal was illegal. I want you to remember, the coffee deal was illegal, unconstitutional, and against the interests of Uganda. Those are their findings. Then Parliament accepted the findings. So what did the president do? The president said, I agree with the foundations,
the findings
of Parliament. But I disagree that we should cancel the coffee deal. Tell me, was he looking at the interests of Uganda, or at, I'm told she's very beautiful and glamorous, or at the person of the dealer, the Italian so-called woman? In my opinion, I am not saying she was her friend, or rather he was her friend, but I think a minister or some high official was in love with that woman. And the President Museveni was protecting the interests of that individual, not of Uganda.
I will proceed to paragraph 1 of clause B, that he or she has conducted himself or herself in a manner which brings, or likely to bring, the office of the president into, and these are the key words I would want you to perhaps explain, that him or herself in a manner which brings, or likely to bring, the office of the president into hatred, contempt, or disrepute, or that he or she has dishonestly done any act or omission which is prejudicial or inimical to the economy or security of the country. I think it goes back to, because now when you talk about the economy, now it goes back to the coffee deals and
yes.
What is
No, let me tell you. I used to be a very close advisor to President Museveni. In fact, I was the only one ever senior presidential advisor on human rights. This is one of them, and international affairs. When I was nominated, and he supported my nomination very strongly to become a judge of the Supreme Court, he never appointed another one, any person to replace me as senior presidential advisor on human rights or international affairs. I wanted to believe, perhaps arrogantly, so forgive me, that he couldn't find another replacement of my caliber. That's why he abolished or let the office disappear in abeyance. Having said that, recently, I was the chairman of the Legal and Drafting Committee who made the Uganda Constitution. A citizen so disgusted, but afraid of Museveni, abused me as being worse than Ebola, Corona, and HIV combined. But my view, being an intelligent fellow, I think those qualifications were meant for President Museveni, but he feared to say so. So, obviously, there is something wrong with the presidency. Many people he has appointed have turned out to be corrupt. Even some convicted, like the former minister, I forget of what, MP for Ruchiga County constituency in Rwanda. Mbabazi persuaded the president to appoint a doctor to be the supremo of Mulago Hospital. Because that man was the rival in the constituency competing with Mbabazi. And in order to save Mbabazi, the man was persuaded to retire and become the chief administrator of Mulago Hospital. That man later was found to have been a swindler, a criminal, but appointed by the president. There are so many thousands of cases like those. So that is why, and he's clever. Kanyeihamba wrote a book called The Defeat of President Museveni in the War Against Corruption. And Museveni agrees with me. That's why he held a meeting to discuss his retirement and succession to his office. That meeting was attended by the renegade president of DP, Norbert Mao, and Museveni's own son, General Muhoozi. In what capacity Muhoozi attended, the world is wondering.
I want to take you to Article 108 about the vice presidency.
Yes.
And in particular here, our interest is between the vice presidency in Uganda and vis-a-vis the deputy presidency in Kenya. Because it literally, it is evident that the deputy presidency is stronger and impactful vis-a-vis a mere vice president, whom so many have taken or interpreted for being a puppet. If it's a vice president in Uganda, they literally have no powers whatsoever. Did you think through, as you came up with this article, to introduce the vice presidency and also their powers, or such powers over the vice presidency have also been consumed and taken by the president himself?
Absolutely right again. With regard to the vice president, I already had a dispute when we were in the bush. We appointed the President Museveni after the death of Rule. I worked very hard with Kategaya, and the late Ambassador Matogo to make sure that the vice chairman, deputy chairman Museveni becomes the chairman and eventually the president of Uganda. And we succeeded. But we had had a dispute with what they called the Gang of Four and radicals in the fight against Idi Amin. I nominated, and this is my personal nomination, that the chairman's deputy should be known as the vice president. You can say I was cheeky because I knew vice chairman has no powers. And I didn't want this radical to have any powers at all in this country. And the only reason I could refuse him is to advise that he should be vice and not deputy. Deputy has real powers. Yeah. Vice has nothing. He simply is a bag carrier of the president. As you can see, this lady,
all vice president,
who is now the vice president, I know her. I met her in Kabale when I was chancellor of Kabale University. She's a very brilliant performer. She's very, very self-opinionated. But the office of the vice president has made sure that most of the time she's silent. I even recently visited her home. She's not very far from here. And so seeking sanctuary. And her man in charge was very good to me, and he gave me good advice. She has not even called me today because her office prohibits her from saying anything
in public unless
sensible. Unless she is directed by her boss.
Literally, isn't the prime minister more powerful as compared to the
absolutely, Absolute is more powerful than the vice president.
Would you suggest amendments, for example, for this in particular to have, because your worries then may not be present apparently, so that the country can have a functional deputy president rather than the vice president, which in your view, you brought it to avoid the radicals to have the same powers.
That was the reason. I wanted to avoid it in Abu Dhabi, the Rugumayos taking office of deputy chairperson.
So that's how,
then they fought.
That's how,
when they realized Kanyeihamba tricked us. He called the vice. I rejected it very much. He should be vice,
not deputy.
Not, and they solved the debate.
And brought to Moses Chigongo. Was it the vice chair? Actually, up to now, the vice chairperson of NRM, I suppose.
Apart from talking about his business and the differences between him and his wife,
political opinions,
has he ever given any political opinion? No.
I've just discovered today that it was intentional to ensure that you people, you suffocate the
radicals and the communists. Yes, yes.
Radical fool.
I have always disliked those people.
There was a pending question, and which I thought would come to our remaining minutes by Junior Bagonza. He asked previously, but we had finished the show, and I was our norm. When the show is done, we go back to look for outstanding comments and questions. Junior Bagonza asked, where does Professor Kanyeihamba see Uganda in the next 10 years, given the confusion and all the sequences of events in the country now? That's
a good question.
Junior Bagonza.
I recently argued the case of Kigezi Bank of Commerce. We are suing the central bank and the government for illegally not winding up,
selling it illegally,
but mismanaging our bank. And I was going, after finishing, I forgot. When I say I hereby end my submissions, because of what happened and the people involved, I wanted to raise the court. Those are people who come to hear me. By the way, there were some doctors, some nurses who came to see that what was I going to perform like. I was going to sing, "Oh Uganda, may the Lord uphold thee," but I forgot. Because really, there's no way we can go on like this. One day we shall just burst. Currently, the ruling party and the president and the general Muhoozi have different interpretation of what is happening, going to happen. President Museveni is our president, but Muhoozi says the army is mine. How do you become, your son becomes the owner of the army, but you are head of state? It reminded me when you sing Norman of Banda. Banda has become quite senile. You can be old and not senile and sharp, as I am. Or you can be senile. So he was being chauffeured in Blantyre, the capital of Malawi, and he saw women kneeling by the roadside as his car passed. I want you to listen to this, and you Ugandans to listen to it. Then Banda, he said, why are those women kneeling for me? Then he said, sir, don't you know that last year you put there a directive that all women passing and sees your car should kneel? So Banda scratched his hairless head and looked at his aide. He said, do you mean I'm still the president of Malawi? I remember that. So Muhoozi knows better. To call your father's army, it is mine.
And then
And they use rubbish his party.
yeah. And say it's a reactionary party.
Yes, the reactionary party, it has no use for Uganda. Don't we have a problem there?
So in your conclusion, you must give him a precise answer. Where do you see this country? So does that mean you see it you see us in a mess? You see us being, because the analogy of Banda you have used is more or less a mockery one. So, I mean, how could even a president forget that he's still a president?
Now, no individual or party or movement, whatever name they call it, destroys a country. That statement is true. They soon come on the stage, they perform badly, and the audience sends them packing. Always, Museveni will go. Even if there are some youth he has paid to sing his songs, those songs remind of a team of judges who were judging a singer. And he sang so badly. And they said, please don't call us, we shall call you. We have reached a stage where many politicians in Uganda say, President Museveni, don't call us, we shall call you.
Okay.
That's where we are.
Your closing remarks we leave here in these last few seconds to the citizens of this republic. Definitely, if you say people will call him, let's hear your closing remarks and we leave for now. And definitely also wish you a safe journey
my
tomorrow.
only trouble
Safe journey tomorrow to your
is
to
most
your to your
Ugandans,
roots.
especially the youth, are so frightened of him that they can't call him, don't call us Mr. President. But they should call him themselves. They have failed to do so, violating the Chiga saying of, I am seeing Walinga. I think what you call the Banyachitara speakers, we understand that. Or what the Baganda call Ebyoya Byanswa. Please don't fear Ebyoya Byanswa or Walinga. I don't know what it is in, actually I would have said it. The only good greeting I know is Kopalingo, but I don't think it is related to don't fear Ebyoya Byanswa.
Okay, viewers, in these seconds I want to thank you once again for having watched us. But also the news that has come in is that Mr. Joseph Kabuleta has been granted bail.
If it's happened to him?
Yeah, has been given bail now, a few seconds ago. You know, he had been remanded for, I think, 2 weeks, if I'm not mistaken.
He has been remanded?
He had been remanded. But today when he reappeared in court, in Nakawa, he was granted the bail. If I may remind you, remember here when we asked you about, you know, he has been telling people about the sectarianism and tendencies of the government.
Yes.
Rather, the government now charged him for promoting sectarianism.
Oh, is that a promoting?
Yeah, that's right. And everyone was wondering, okay, you charge he who talks about sectarianism and leave he who practices it, because literally he was mentioning many officials having, you know, coming from a specific region and such imbalances. But the good news...
Maybe you can give me advice. You see, Museveni used to be proud to be called a Munyakigezi. It seems to me now, he doesn't want to be called a Munyakigezi.
He might charge you.
Is that sectarianism?
He might try you for promoting sectarianism. We will see you next time. May God bless all of us. And also wish Justice Kanyeihamba a safe journey tomorrow as he moves.
Yeah, I'm going to cover it, yes.
Yes.
But don't tell those people.
Not really.
They might deliberately crash my car.
May God bless you for good in my country.
Thank you.